You probably remember the 2008 Mumbai attacks, right? How the terrorists used a sea route to get in? Well, that vulnerability, that memory, is exactly why a pretty remote waterway on the India-Pakistan border is suddenly under this intense spotlight. So let's get into what's actually happening and why this quiet little creek could seriously be the next major flashpoint between two nuclear arms neighbors. So this is Sur Creek. For decades, it's been a disputed border, sure, but a relatively quiet one. So the big question is, what changed? Why is this 96-kilometer waterway suddenly the focus of nuclear threats and massive military buildups? Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll dig into the history of the flashpoint itself. Then we'll look at the crazy fast escalation that got us here, examine the alleged grand plan from Pakistan, and then break down India's powerful military response. And finally, we'll zoom out to see how all of this connects to a much bigger geopolitical game. All right, first things first, let's get our bearings and really understand the history behind this whole conflict. It's definitely not new, but you could argue the stakes have never, ever been higher than they are right now. So, what is Sur Creek? Well, it's a 96-kilometer tidal estuary. Think of it as this marshy, constantly shifting waterway that separates India's Gujarat state from Pakistan's Sindh province. But the most important part, it opens right up into the Arabian Sea, which makes it a hugely strategic gateway for both countries. Now, the core of this dispute, which has been going on for over a century, is actually pretty simple. India, pointing to international maritime law, says the border should run right down the middle of the channel. Pakistan, on the other hand, claims the entire waterway as its own. And it's this fundamental disagreement that's kept the region as a constant source of tension. Okay, so with that context in mind, let's look at how this long simmering dispute just suddenly boiled over in a matter of weeks this past October. It happened fast. I mean, the timeline of events here shows just a dizzying acceleration. It kicks off with a stern warning from India. That was then met with a direct nuclear threat from Pakistan's army chief. Just one day later, there's a report of a foiled infiltration attempt, which then leads to high-level military visits and back-and-forth naval drills. In just a few weeks, the rhetoric and the military posturing just hit a boiling point. And the talk became deadly serious. This threat of using nuclear weapons, which the source we're looking at attributes to General Asim Munir, wasn't just posturing. It fundamentally changed the stakes and sent absolute shockwaves across the entire region. So you have to wonder, what could be driving this sudden aggression from Pakistan? Well, the analysis we're drawing from suggests it's all part of a larger, quote, grand plan that has several different strategic goals. The scale of the alleged threat was pretty significant. On October 19th, Indian forces said they stopped an infiltration attempt not by just a few people, but by a group of 120 militants at sea. That suggests a pretty highly coordinated operation was in play. This analysis suggests the goals were multi-layered. 1, to try and recreate a horrific Mumbai-style attack. 2, to hit crucial economic targets like the Jamnagar oil refineries. And 3, to ultimately destabilize India's economy by scaring off foreign investors. And that shallow, hard-to-patrol terrain of Sur Creek, it provides the perfect cover for exactly this kind of covert attack. And apparently, this wasn't a new idea. The analysis points to an alleged warning from General Munir way back in August, during a visit to the U.S., where he specifically mentioned targeting the Jamnagar refineries, which handle a huge chunk of India's oil. This suggests the plan had been in motion for months. Okay, so let's flip the script and look at India's response. Faced with all these alleged provocations, India launched a massive military demonstration of its own called Operation Trishul. So India's answer was Operation Trishul, a huge, coordinated military exercise. The name Trishul, which means trident, is pretty fitting, right? It brought together all three branches of the military, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, in a unified show of force all along the Arabian Sea coast. And the scale of this deployment was just staggering. Something like 20,000 troops were moved to the region. This was way more than just a drill. It was a crystal-clear message of military readiness. And the firepower on display was just immense. India deployed basically everything, from main battle tanks to its advanced S-400 air defense systems. Out at sea, the aircraft carrier INS Vikrant was a major centerpiece, while up in the air, top-tier Rafale and Su-30 jets were mobilized. You throw in intelligence and cyber units, and you've got a full-spectrum show of force, the whole shebang. And all that military muscle was backed up by some very sharp rhetoric. This warning from India's defense minister is a direct counterpunch. He's essentially saying, hey, if you threaten us through Sir Creek, don't forget we have a direct route from that exact same area right to your major port city, Karachi.
But here's the thing. This conflict isn't just happening in a bubble. The analysis we're following suggests it's actually a key piece in a much wider geopolitical game, one that's pulling in other global and regional powers. And this is where the web really expands. The analysis points to the US allegedly boosting its presence through a port deal with Pakistan. At the same time, it claims a new alignment from Bangladesh is creating openings for both the US and Chinese military influence right on India's doorstep. The picture being painted is of a coordinated effort, with Dhaka possibly even becoming an intelligence hub for operations targeting India. So when you start connecting these dots, the Sir Creek standoff stops looking like just an isolated border dispute. Instead, it's presented as a calculated move and a much larger strategic game being played by multiple nations. A game designed to challenge India's influence and grab control over those vital sea lanes in the Indian Ocean. All of this leaves us with a final, really critical question. As these regional tensions start pulling in global players, are we literally watching the Arabian Sea transform from a vital trade route into a brand new stage for great power conflict? The answer isn't clear, but the stakes, well, they have never been higher.